JJ McCarthy era starts now in Minnesota, and he'll be looking to replicate Sam Darnold's success in an opportunistic offensive system. We dig into the top 3 fantasy storylines for the Vikings heading into 2025 on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen every day. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL, fantasy, and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. We'll discuss more about that later on in the show, how to sign up for FanDuel. But today we are going to finish up the NFC North. We're going through every team in the NFL and talking through their top 3 fantasy storylines of the offseason. And today we are finishing up the NFC North with the Minnesota Vikings. And they're a tough team to figure out right now because of the quarterback situation, right? With JJ McCarthy. And he's going to take over as a first-year starter. His rookie season was a wash. He hurt his knee in the preseason and then missed the entire season. Sam Darnold took over. He had a really shocking season, fantasy season, and just NFL season in general. But, Vinny, do you believe that J.J. McCarthy can have similar success to what we saw Sam Darnold have last year? Because right now he's sitting at quarterback 22 in the rankings. And if he's going to perform like Sam Darnold and put up his numbers, then that's going to be a steal there at that rank.
Yeah, I think the biggest reason we're at QB 22 is because he's basically a rookie starting over again. We don't know what we're going to get because we've never seen him take the field in a meaningful game action here in the NFL. The last time we saw him, he was winning a national championship with Michigan. So we know the upside is there. We also know the whole knock on him at Michigan is we didn't get to see him throw enough. And then he proved that, yeah, when he can throw and is allowed to throw and is in a pass-happy offense, he's going to come through. And he's a pretty good athlete. He's not going to give you big-time supporting numbers there, but he can move around, extend plays, and he's definitely going to be a lot more mobile in this offense than we saw Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold be. So that's already a plus, right, that those quarterbacks do not have. Now, this system might be just one of the best in the NFL, period. I mean, you look at the numbers. So you had Kirk Cousins before he went down with that torn Achilles, ended his Vikings career in 2023. He was a QB7 in fantasy on average. Last year, you look at Sam Darnold, QB11 average, and QB8 when you're in 9, however you look at it, when you're totaling his points, right? So he did produce really well. He was a starting quarterback in this system for fantasy. So you look at those numbers, and those are promising, right? I mean, the only difference is Cousins was an established guy, but Darnold didn't have a big track record, right? I mean, he came in, there were a lot of question marks, what he was going to do. He'd never played even close to that well in his career. He was a backup with the 49ers. He was a flameout with the Jets and Panthers. So you didn't know you were going to get that, but you look at this system, and all of a sudden, the production was there. He was a good fit in the pocket passing scheme of Kevin O'Connell. So now you put J.J. McCarthy into this mix. Very good weapons. You should get Christian Darrisaw back at left tackle. They kind of had to makeshift there when he went down with Cam Robinson. So you have a very good left tackle. You have a pretty good offensive line where they invested more. They got Will Freeze up front on top of O'Neal and some of the other guys they have there. So good offensive line. So the protection is going to be there. Then you look at the receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. I mean, first-round draft capital on both of these guys, special players. Jefferson might be the best in the league, wherever you want to argue with him and Jamar Chase. Then you have T.J. Hawkinson. He doesn't have that knee injury behind him. He's fully healthy. Last year was just a terrible season for him because, again, he wasn't healthy. So 3 immediate good weapons here, right, that are in this offense. And we've had other people emerge, like a Jalen Naylor. Somebody will come in and make some plays off the bench. And you have a good, again, veteran receiving back who also pass protects well in Aaron Jones. So, look, if Darnold wasn't a known last year and he came through, this would say that McCarthy can come through as an unknown this year. Now, QB 22, he's between Tua Tagovailoa and Bryce Young. Now, Tua, I have no interest, and we've talked a lot about how much we like Bryce Young. on this podcast, but I would still lean McCarthy, right? Because he does have something that Young does not have, an elite wide receiver yet. I mean, Tedero McMillan, we'll see, but he's got actually one great one and one very good one in Addison already. And then you add the tight end, you add the other weapons here. So I think everything screams value here in QB22. And I'm excited to see what he can do because I had actually Darnold as a backup who worked out really well in the league that I was in with Michelle. I had McCarthy stashed, so now I'm going to see what he can do. I still have Darnold in another starting role, so it's all working out well. But I'm excited to see if McCarthy can definitely deliver in the top 15 in fantasy this year.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting for him because not only does he have, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson. You brought up Kevin O'Connell, like how his system is so good for quarterbacks. It's not even just Darnold and Cousins the last couple of years. You go back to 2021 when O'Connell was with the Rams as an offensive coordinator. Stafford had a great year then too, right? And you go throughout Stafford's season since 2012, and these are his touchdowns that he threw. I'm going to go through the whole list. 20, 29, 22, 32, 24, 29, 21, 19, 26. And then he gets with Kevin O'Connell in 2021 and he throws 41 touchdowns. And after Kevin O'Connell leaves to go to the Vikings, he has 10 in an injury-riddled season, 24-20. Like massive outlier year with Kevin O'Connell there. And we saw the same thing from Sam Darnold last year. Sam Darnold had never had a season with 20 passing touchdowns, and he throws 35 with Kevin O'Connell last year. It's just, this is a great system for quarterbacks. So as long as JJ McCarthy doesn't fall flat on his face, which he could, at first year in the NFL, maybe he's absolutely terrible. But as long as he's not absolutely terrible, he's going to be a value at quarterback 22. And when pretty much every year the quarterback is a top 12 quarterback with Kevin O'Connell, whether it's Darnold, Cousins, or Stafford. So I don't think it's I don't think it's unrealistic to say McCarthy can be a top 12 guy and have a Bo Nix type season in year one.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. You have Bo Nix, and again, they're going to be aggressive in throwing downfield. They have good receivers here. And you look at, again, Jaden Daniels. He had a very good support system as well with his play caller in Cliff Kingsbury. And we know that Sean Payton was a really good influence on Bo Nix. So really comes down to these rookie quarterbacks having the assist of a very good system. And then this is basically a second-year rookie, if you want to call him that. So he's got all the support. Like, if he doesn't have some kind of success, then JJ McCarthy is a total bust. So at least the Vikings know that if he can't produce with this situation, he's not going to produce in many other cases here. So I think that's also given them a comfort level to trade, or not trade, but not re-sign Darnold, and also just move forward here with McCarthy, where everyone's like, oh, are they going to go get Aaron Rodgers, all this other stuff? Why would you do that? You used a first-round pick on McCarthy. You're waiting. You're about to let him loose last year if he had beaten Darnold in camp. So just go with your plan A that was there. Look, just enjoy the season you had with Sam Darnold. But again, Darnold didn't take you far in the playoffs. McCarthy might have a higher ceiling here. So we know what we got with Cousins and Darnold. McCarthy could have provided a little bit more juice, just with a bit stronger, livelier arm at this rate because he's younger and he can move around really well. So these are some things we should be excited about. And again, everything is unknown, but we also are shaky on Tua and Bryce Young. So if you're going to look at that, I think you look McCarthy for sure at this spot.
Yeah, Bryce Young is a guy, like you said, we like, but he is riskier than JJ McCarthy, which sounds crazy.
Definitely.
I think they're both risky, obviously, but right with JJ McCarthy, with his playmakers in the system he's in, he just feels safer to not completely bust. And not just the system, as we mentioned, all of his playmakers, which we have to get into, and their rankings and how we feel about them moving into next year. Can Justin Jefferson and Addison and TJ Hawkinson all get it done with JJ McCarthy throwing the ball? We will discuss right after we hear from one of our sponsors.
This episode, Locked On Fantasy Football, is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are in the penultimate round, right before the finals. It's looking really good for the Oklahoma City Thunder. They're up 2-0 on the Timberwolves, so they're headed potentially to the finals. But the other series is going to heat up here because the Pacers took game 1 in Madison Square Garden, and now the Knicks are looking for revenge. They're in game 2 to even it up. And this is a game that you want to definitely invest in. is interesting because I think this is a good chance for the Knicks to rebound, take care of business. Heartbreaking loss in game one in overtime. So I like them 6-point favorites on this one to rebound and take the series even back to Indianapolis. So that's something that you can explore as well with all those point scores, Jalen Brunson and Tyrese Halliburton. What are they going to do in this game? The NBA playoffs are going to give you that every night with delivering highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action when you're looking at props or just the game line. It's easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. That's a lot of fun to do. With lesser games, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Check it out right now. Go to FanDuel because it's a perfect time to sign up. FanDuel.com. Place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you would get $200 in bonus bets. That's a great way to start right now as we're close to the NBA Finals. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, Michelle, the Vikings have great receivers. Let's just put it out there. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Addison came into his own last year playing off Jefferson. He really thrived in the offense. It's really great to see. Wide receiver 21 last year. That's what we're looking for, right? Could he be a wide receiver 2 there? And it really upgraded. Went up 7 spots from his rookie year. And Justin Jefferson, I mean, this dude just keeps performing. He started out his career as a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 5, wide receiver 2, and now he's ranked wide receiver 2 behind his old buddy, Jamar Chase. So what do we expect? Is there a potential for actually these two guys to get better with a younger quarterback here than they've had with Cousins and Darnold?
Yeah, you would hope. You would hope he can have at least a similar year that he had with Sam Darnold, right? And he's now done it with Kirk Cousins and Sam Darnold. Like, I'm not worried about what quarterback is throwing to Justin Jefferson. I will say right now he's ranked wide receiver 2 behind Jamar Chase. And yeah, that makes sense because he keeps finishing as a top 5 wide receiver, right? Wide receiver 2 last year, wide receiver 5 in 2023, wide receiver 2 in 2022, and wide receiver 4 in 2021. I will say last year's numbers, though, if you were to draft him at 1 or 2 in your draft or 3, right? I don't think you'd be particularly happy with 15.6 fantasy points per game. Yeah, it was the wide receiver 2 last year and wide receiver 2 on average. Well, if you're not counting Chris Godwin, who played 7 games. But it was so far behind Jamar Chase. It was a good over 4 points per game different. And 15.6 points normally is not there at number 2. Like in 2023, that would have landed him as a wide receiver 6 on average behind Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb, Keenan Allen, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and himself at 16.8. But like his numbers last year were not worthy of a wide receiver 2 cost. You weren't upset about it. It just didn't give you many of those week winning games. He only had more than 18 points in 3 games last year. Now, he still had a lot of good, solid games throughout, and you'll take it. But I will say at wide receiver 2 cost, he's going to have to do more next year to come through with that cost.
Yeah, that's a good point you make. It's not just about the wide receiver ranking in the end and the scoring. It's in relation to the wide receiver 1, was he a good value? In relation to the wide receiver 3, was he a good value, right?
Exactly.
So these are all these things that you look at. It's not just in a bubble where you just say, okay, he's the second best wide receiver, so he's going to be the second best again. Like, I don't like that kind of thinking anyway, but the question is, could he be more explosive? Could he be more reliable? And I think the answer could be yes, because again, you have veteran quarterbacks who are more willing to spread the ball around. I think I'm a little bit more worried about Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson a little bit more, because Jefferson is going to get open for his rookie quarterback, and he's going to just be the nature, well, second-year quarterback, but the nature of his rookie mindset is going to be, I need to get the ball in the hands of my safest playmaker all over the field. Now, we would like to think that McCarthy will say, oh, I'm going to execute this offense, spread it around well to Addison and Hawkinson quite a bit here, but I think Jefferson's going to dominate targets. And last year, what we saw with Jamar Chase, why he shot across, first of all, he had Joe Burrow, and that helps. And then the second part was that T. Higgins was in and out of the lineup a little bit, missed time. And then they didn't really have anything else, and their defense stunk. So those are the things that are already kind of concerning about Jefferson because, again, he's got an unknown quarterback. Their defense is not as bad, right? In Minnesota, they're actually competitive. They're pretty complete offense because they have other players. I think the question is, are Addison and Hawkinson combined a bigger threat to Jefferson than Chase? I mean, we might be just like nitpicking here, but that's what we're going to do at the top of wide receivers, like when we're looking at it versus CeeDee Lamb or Amon-Ra St. Brown and all those other guys at the top. But again, I think it actually could play into Jefferson's favor just because, again, I think they're going to have to rely upon him a little bit more with the younger quarterback. They're not going to mess around a little bit. They'll say, look, if Jefferson's somewhat open, get him the ball in the open field. So I could see a scenario where his receptions and yards go up. Maybe the thing that he still might be behind Chase on is the touchdown. So I'm hoping for a big year from Jefferson, but I actually think, again, we might think it hurts to have the younger quarterback. I think it actually helps.
Yeah, it might. And definitely, I do think this hurts Jordan Addison just a little bit. Now, his wide receiver 30 rank, I think, is fair. He was wide receiver 21 on average last year, wide receiver 28 in his rookie season. So in his 2 years, he has come through with that rank pretty easily. I will say, though, like, I don't know if we can count on 35 pass touchdowns from JJ McCarthy, right? Like what they got from Sam Darnold. That's a big ask from a first year starter. That just does not typically happen, like, at all. And also, we have to remember how many interceptions and turnovers this Vikings defense got for their offense to put them into prime spots and made it really easy for Sam Darnold to throw touchdowns. This happened with Dak Prescott a couple years back when he was throwing so many touchdowns. It's because the defense kept putting him into amazing opportunities. And it's really hard to replicate that type of turnover production that the Vikings defense had last year. So that could also hurt this group a little bit. And Addison was so touchdown dependent last year. He averaged 12.1 points per game on the season in half PPR. But in the 8 games without scoring a touchdown at all, he averaged 5.4 points per game if he didn't score a touchdown. And then he only played 15 games last year, but in the 13 games without scoring multiple touchdowns in the game, it was 9.6 points per game. So he's very, very touchdown dependent, and being a touchdown dependent guy with a first year starter, that does worry me a bit. I think I'm leaning more on the TJ Hawkinson side, that I like him to be the next favorite target behind Justin Jefferson on this team. And he had 0 touchdowns last year, but I do think like that should go back. The pendulum should swing for him there, and he should get, his 5 to 6 touchdowns again, or it won't feel as bad as it did last year.
Yeah, and if the touchdowns go down overall for the quarterback, that's why I think yardage and catches could go up for Jefferson, and the touchdowns will probably mean flat for him, but the others will definitely be affected. That's why we're seeing the drop in ranking, and also you can't recreate the chemistry that Addison seemed to have with Sam Darnold. Maybe it was a former USC thing, something like that going on, where that was in the background, but whatever. I mean, it's hard to just say Addison is going to feel it as a number 2 receiver with the next quarterback in line. So when we look at it overall, it's just saying that it's a pool of targets, that the target pool might be a little less. There also could be less touchdowns in that pool. So when you look at that overall, I say, okay, Jefferson, he's going to get his, he's fine. Then you're right. Addison's production tied a lot to Hawkinson, A, not being on the field for a lot of the early part of the season, and B, taking a while to get him up to speed. Right now, by the way, he's tight end 5, and that's pretty high, you would think, because Brock Bowers, Trey McBride, George Kittle, and Sam Laporta are the only tight ends ahead of Hawkinson on the board, despite him going as tight end 20. This is a tight end 20 on average, by the way, after coming back from his ACL. So I think you're right, Michelle. I think Hawkinson is just too good to ignore, and then you go back to JJ McCarthy. He did like to stretch the field a bit. He had a go-to guy in Roman Wilson, but his other main go-to guy was Colston Loveland. So he likes throwing to the tight end. He's going to feel comfortable. And again, Jefferson and Hawkinson are the seasoned receivers on this team. He's going to feel comfortable throwing to those guys because they can scheme themselves open and get open and not be as touchdown dependent to put up the numbers here for McCarthy. So I love it. Good call on your part to say this is where the numbers are shifting. And this is, I think, what the industry is thinking, right? We're dropping down Jordan Addison by 9 spots. We're shooting up Hawkinson. It makes a lot of sense when you look at the makeup of JJ McCarthy's passing, his history, and just the fact that Hawkinson's going to be a lot healthier to cut into Addison's work in the red zone.
Yeah, I mean, he had the third most targets on the team last year, third most targets and receiving yards, and he played only 10 games. And the first few games back, he only played 40% of the snaps, and that went up as he, got back from that ACL tear, back up into the high 60s, and then all the way to 78% by the time they hit week 18. So I expect him to get a ton of targets. I think there's a massive drop off after TJ Hawkinson. Maybe you want to put Mark Andrews close to him, and maybe you feel comfortable with that. But after last year, but then it goes Johnny Smith, Travis Kelce, Evan Ingram, David Njoku. Like it starts to get to those guys. So I think TJ Hawkinson's kind of the cutoff there of those top 5 that I feel comfortable with George Kittle and Sam Laporte and Brock Bowers being that tier 1, and then Trey McBride and TJ Hawkinson kind of being right there together, just because of the touchdowns are lower for them. But I think Hawkinson would probably be my last, okay, I want to get this guy because I want to have a tight end that I feel comfortable with each week. And TJ Hawkinson does sit in that category for me. Now we have one more thing to figure out with this Vikings offense, and it's the backfield. Aaron Jones actually had a really solid season overall last year. He had over 1,500 scrimmage yards, running back 20 on average, but the team traded for Jordan Mason. Does that change anything for him? Because he is going to be turning 31 years old this season. So let's dig into Aaron Jones and his value come next year, right after a quick break. All right, let's finish up today's episode and discussing the Vikings offseason and the big storylines heading into 2025. And as I mentioned, the Vikings traded for 49ers backup running back Jordan Mason, who performed pretty well when Christian McCaffrey was out with injury. But he's not a dynamic type of running back, right? He's a good runner, but he's not going to be a receiving threat. He's just, I don't see anything special with him, but he's good enough. He's good enough to eat into some of Aaron Jones's touches. What do you think about Aaron Jones, who's sitting here at running back 22 rank? He was a running back 20 on average last year at his first season with the Vikings, put up 1,500 scrimmage yards, but only had 5 rushing touchdowns. Do you see his rushing touchdowns increasing? Do you see his workload increasing or decreasing next year?
Well, I think Aaron Jones is in a bit of trouble here with a significant role on this team. Now, when we look at this offseason, right, let's look at some breadcrumbs that the Vikings have left us. There were some hot rumors about them taking Ashton Jeanty or Omarion Hampton in the first round of the draft. Okay, that didn't materialize. Maybe a bit of a smokescreen to lure another team in or whatever if they wanted to get those players. That could have been the case. But then we had a recent quote from the coach, O'Connell, who said that he considers it a 1A, 1B situation. The dreaded 1A, 1B commentary here. We don't know exactly what that means. But when he says 1A, 1B, it's a little bit different than to say, hey, we have a lot of backs who can contribute on this team, right? He was very specific to say we have A and we have B. And this makes a lot of sense because they haven't had that solid, quote, running back. Now, I think the touches could be interesting. Aaron Jones is a very good veteran pass protector, so you want to have him on the field, right? Potentially for those early downs because you want to keep J.J. McCarthy upright. I think also having Darisaw back to protect will be great because then it'll take a little pressure off Aaron Jones. But this is why I think Aaron Jones' role could be very interestingly specific here, where he has to be in situations where this is a pass first team, right? So he's got to be out there in early downs. And he's got to be out there in passing situations because Jordan Mason is not really a receiver. We saw that behind Christian McCaffrey. That's not his deal. But now Jordan Mason could be taking all the other touches. And when I say that, the touchdowns. And that would be something that would really cut into Aaron Jones' value. I think you'll also see Jordan Mason. I mean, look, he also played in a system where you had to pass protect. I mean, he's not a zero in that area. He's just not going to give you that clear up receiving ability. So I think you might see him have a big this role in the red zone, right, to take pressure off Aaron Jones. You mentioned the age. And I think they want a little bit more of the spelling of Aaron Jones. They just couldn't get it consistently with the guys that they had. They moved on from Alexander Mattison. Cam Akers they brought back. That has not worked. Maybe they'll bring him back a third time. I don't know. But when you look at it, he's ranked RB22 Jones, RB20. So, again, this is dropping him a little bit. I think he should drop a little bit more than that. I mean, if he's already starting that low, I think he's more of a flex player right now because, again, I don't think they're joking about using Mason. Again, if you want to look for one more breadcrumb, the fact they traded for Mason. So they thought he was valuable enough to go after a running back. Now they've done that with Akers and it hasn't materialized, but I think there's something a little bit different to this, especially with Kevin O'Connell making that quote. So again, this dude was actually very productive. If you look at it, RB32, so only 12 spot difference. And Mason was basically a backup, and then his role was kind of interesting with McCaffrey going down, right? So I think they kind of spread it out a little bit, but we didn't expect that. But I look at it, Mason is definitely a capable runner. He's got some starting potential here. So I think this is not great for Jones. Again, I would drop him a little bit more than just 2 spots from his finish last year.
I'm with you because especially he was tied for third on the Vikings in targets last year. Aaron Jones was at 62. He was tied with TJ Hawkinson, who played just 10 games. So TJ Hawkinson should eat into those targets too.
Yep.
And then like he had 255 carries last year. No other running back on the Vikings had more than 64. Cam Akers was second with 64. And no other Vikings player had more than 1 rushing touchdown. So he had the 5. I cannot see Jordan Mason not getting at least 100 carries next year, or 125, 150. Like I do think this is going to be more split on the actual carries with Aaron Jones being more of the receiving back and being used in those duties. And of course he'll get his carries too, but we're going to see that go down. And there's too many guys going behind Aaron Jones that I would much rather have. I'd rather take a shot on DeAndre Swift, who we think will own that backfield with Ben Johnson. Even the rookies and RJ Harvey and Judkins and Caleb Johnson, guys that we think are going to get a big share of their backfield immediately, right? I'd rather take a shot on those guys than going with Aaron Jones, where you know pretty much what you're going to get from him. And there is a floor with Jordan Mason there now too. So it's not even like it's safe. So that's why I'm out with Aaron. I'm out on Aaron Jones at this cost.
Yeah, it could very much end up being that A.J. Dillon type situation developing here for Aaron Jones part 2. Again, Jones was good enough to battle his injury attrition, to come back, be productive. We saw him have that flash in the playoffs there that kind of probably made sure he was going to sign with the Vikings, right, in his final game for the Packers. So when we look at that, look, he's been a very good back for fantasy, for reality, and he's a good guy to have on your team. He's just a nice leader. He's going to give you good makeup in the locker room. So that's there, right? And they're going to reward him with some key role here. But again, Mason and Jones, they're envisioning a 1-2 punch. Again, this is a pass first team. So they want to make sure that's all cleaned up when they need to with the blocking and receiving. But once that's there, then they need to look at how we're going to finish drives. And yet another way to maybe say there's going to be less passing touchdowns to go around this year if Mason and Jones are kind of splitting that workload in the red zone, and Hawkinson also being a factor to cut into Addison scoring. So it's an interesting offense. I think they'll adjust well. O'Connell's smart enough to say, okay, we need to use the tight end in the running game a little bit more, take pressure off a quarterback who's never started a full season before. So I'm excited to see what you can do here. But again, if we're going to say the arrows are pointing up, it's definitely with Hawkinson and McCarthy most here. Jefferson probably staying static, and Addison Jones probably losing some value here.
Yep, absolutely. That is it for the Vikings. We will be getting into a new division next week after Memorial Day weekend. I hope everyone has a great and safe and fun weekend. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Scouting. The NFL draft is over, but the roster moves and news never stop. Host Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino will make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason. Find Locked On NFL Scouting on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We will talk to you on Tuesday. Bye, y'all.